Hi, I'm Rick.
Hi, I'm Oscar. Rick, you have something awesome for us, right?
Yes, I've heard about Dapr for a while now. So the distributed application runtime, and
So not Dapper, the, what is it, ORM? Not
yeah,
ORM?
there's two Dappers. This is the one where that enables you to run distributed applications without you having to manage everything around it. So it helps you with a lot of stuff. It's released now, V1.
V1,
Yes.
okay.
And I wanted to take a look at it, so let's go. Let's dive into my machine. And here we can see that in the main overview, you see that you can have application code with microservices written in any code or any framework. And as long as it has a HTTP or gRPC API, you can use it with Dapr. And then the power of this is that it's completely cloud agnostic. So if you build your microservices with the help of Dapr, then it enables you to run it on any cloud or any infrastructure anywhere.
Okay, but because let's unpack that. What did you all say? Because there was a lot. What is it? What do I got? Because it's cloud. Is it a library? Is it a service? What is it?
So it actually runs as a sidecar, and then what they actually mean is you have your main application, and then Dapr runs on the side in a separate process. It's completely separated off of your application, but it's connected to it by using the APIs.
Okay,
And
so you communicate with it from your app,
Yes.
and it doesn't run inside your app.
True.
So it
true.
is, but you spin it up yourself. You run it in your own context.
Yes, and I have some demos that will feature that. Also, the cool thing is, it does a lot of stuff for you. So if we scroll down a bit, we can see the building blocks that are available. And then here we have, I'm going to zoom it out just a little bit, service invocation, but also extensibility, state management. So for instance, if you run Dapr out of the box, it uses Docker for some of these building blocks that are available. And then if you have state management, for instance, Dapr gives you an endpoint where you can store and get state. And then by default that runs on Redis.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing is your endpoint never changes despite the service that you put underneath for, in this case, state management. So for instance, if you look at state management, and I'm going to skip this one, if you look at state store, you can switch to all these different types of state stores. So Redis is in here, which is the default, but you could also use SQL Server or Cloud State or Couchbase or Blob Storage or any of these services without your application code having to change, since you have an endpoint where you can talk to your state.
And the endpoint is your Dapper client, probably, or something that does, well, I saw HTTP and gRPC.
Yeah.
So it's completely agnostic. It is a complete abstraction over a few different concepts. One of them, state.
Yes, true. So,
and this is state store used for, like, this is state, or is it more like a caching layer, or can it be both? Is it instead of your database, or?
well, it is built on Redis by default, but as said, it could use all of those different types of state stores in the back, which means that your state can be persisted throughout different instances.
But your interface, the way of communicating, is a kind of schema-less version, I guess.
Yeah, and then the cool thing is, they actually have quite a few animations online as well, where they actually switch out so you have this endpoint where you talk to, and then you switch out whatever it talks to, because the Dapr environment will make that transparent for you, because you just talk to state and you don't care what the end result is of where it actually gets stored, as long as it gets stored. So that's actually pretty powerful. And then I used to think, okay, so this is going to be difficult to get started with, since it does a lot of cool stuff, but also this might be a little bit difficult to get up and running with.
That feels like you're getting a huge Swiss pocket knife.
Yeah, that for one. But also I wanted to find out how easy or difficult it is to actually get up and get running with Dapr. So I actually recorded all of the steps that I did in preparing this to get to a running environment of Dapr, and I can show you how. So the first thing that you do is you install Dapr, and then now this is just a PowerShell command that does a web request to a PS1 file, and then it does the installation. And then by default, it runs or it installs on C/Dapr, which
this
is
is for your dev machine. In this case. Okay.
This is for our local dev machine. And then for initializing Dapr, first of all, you need to do a Dapr init because it prepares your machine for running Dapr locally. But also it requires Docker. So yesterday I didn't have Docker running, and as I say that, I'm thinking about the fact that Docker is probably not running at this point, so I started it up right now. So the Docker engine is starting. And then what I did actually to start using Dapr, in the getting started tutorial, they run Dapr without a client application, but to me that's not interesting. I want to see how it interacts with a existing application.
Indeed, because you want to spin up an app, which you probably run in a container. That's a bit the environment for this, and then the Dapr will be available inside the container somewhere else. You spin it up separately.
Well, that's actually a cool thing. The application doesn't have to be in a container, since locally I'm going to do a .NET run for my application, but from the Dapr context, so that Dapr knows where my endpoints for my applications are. So my application doesn't need to be in a container. It just needs to have an endpoint. So by getting it to run, you actually specify a Dapr run, and then you specify the app ID, so that's actually for service recognition. And then you can say, okay, I want my Dapr to listen on port 3500, while my app listens on port 5001, which is the default endpoint for a web API, which is the application that I created. And then I can say something about that I want to use SSL from the app, and then a --, and then that's the command that you need to run to get your application to work. And in this case, it's simply a .NET run.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is, if we have this available right here, I can take this command, and we'll go to the location where I have the web app available. So if I list the directory information, you can see this is a simple web API .NET Core project, or it's even .NET 5 project. So I have a weather forecast controller, which is the default.
Yeah.
So I could do a .NET run from here, which would mean I get a instance of my application running. It's building now also, and then it's actually up and running. So if I go to localhost port 5001 and then the weather forecast, I get the weather forecast, right? But now I want to run this application from the context of the Dapr environment. So then I do my Dapr run, and I give it some app name in this case. I would like to listen on port 3500 from Dapr, and my app listens on 5001. Now if I run this, and I'm not really sure if Docker has started already. Looks like it. You're up and running, it says. So now my application is running, and Dapr is running in the sidecar. Now, important to know is that if I now go to localhost weather forecast, I still get my...
Yeah, that's your endpoint. It's running in the .NET Run context,
this is my
right?
normal endpoint. However, I also have a separate endpoint on 3500, and then 3500, and then I get a lot of this extra fluff in my URL. In this case, a v1/invoke, then the name of the application, web app, then method, and then weather forecast that actually tells me the actual endpoint I want to call. So there's already a lot of stuff here, and this should still... Couldn't find the service web app. I think I called it some app name in this case. Now I need to find what I actually called it.
These are the hard parts of IT, right?
Would it be case sensitive? It would.
Ah.
So it's case sensitive, but now you can see that I get the same results as I would get from running to my localhost 5001.
What I see here is on this port, you're now running through that Docker container.
Yep.
There is also, like Dapper is running on that endpoint.
Yep.
And in the background, your .NET application is running and being reverse proxied over a bit of a path name.
Yeah. But this is not the cool part yet.
No, like
This is,
it doesn't add anything yet.
we could do this before, right? But this is
Yeah.
not the cool part yet. So let's go to Postman.
Mhm.
And then, because we have Dapper up and running now, we have some extra options available. Now, we have Postman up. So let's go to the save state option here. And then we can see that I run to 3500,
Mhm.
which is, again, my Dapper instance.
Yeah.
And then V1. And then I have state store.
Mhm.
So in this case, I'm going to call the state store that Dapper provides for me. And in this case, I would like to have a key Betatalks 01 with this is an awesome state. And just to make sure that this is not prepared in any way, this is an awesome Betatalks. This is some Betatalks awesome state. Okay, fair enough. I can send that over, and then I get a 204 pretty fast. But then from anywhere in my application, I could run a state store and then to the name that I just provided for the state element and get back what I actually just sent it over.
Mhm.
Which means I now have an endpoint that enables me to store and get state from the Dapper environment.
Okay. But you want to use this from your application you're running, right?
Yes.
Like this is now you can reach it because you're the dev. Because
Yep.
this is the one you wouldn't expose normally on the internet.
True. So that's it runs on in the sidecar, and that makes it that you can connect to it. But then, of course, if you deploy this, you could have this within a VNet or
So
be available somewhere.
what you're actually creating by adding Dapper, like in that sidecar, but it allows you to you have a palette, almost like a small version of something like Azure, but with all kinds of SaaS services available that you
can
don't
plug
have
in.
to think about, because the actual implementation on the back, it's so abstracted that it's gone. Like it can be SQL, it can be anything, so it can be any data center, it can be on-prem, can be everywhere.
Yeah.
That means that it is another different way to build applications that are less vendor dependent.
Yes. And it enables a lot of stuff that we need for building and running microservices. So one of the problems you might have there is distributed state.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here you just get an endpoint. You say, store me this state, and now I would like to get this
You
state.
always have state, endpoint, or some caching.
Secrets.
Secret management, because if we build SaaS like what you and I are used to,
Yes.
we have this stuff in Azure, right?
Yep.
But you don't always have it, and sometimes the requirement is you're not running there,
Yeah,
or
true.
you're running on multiple clouds or on-prem, and then these things are hard, especially on-prem,
Yes, true.
because there are no alternatives, and you're picking a stack, and in this case, you're much more versatile because you can start building, and depending on the library.
And this can also be a good way of having an initial version of your microservices being run on-prem,
Mm-hmm.
and then gradually shifting towards a
It's
cloud
completely portable
solution.
after
Yeah.
this.
So another thing I would like to show is if we go to...
Does this solve all the issues that, for instance, also Service Fabric solves for you? Like discoverability and multiple version, health endpoints?
That's actually a good question. I'm not really sure if it solves all of the issues that Service Fabric solves for you, but I do think that it actually helps in being able to build vendor-independent microservices and run them.
And the nice thing is you're not cluttering up your app.
Yeah.
You're putting it on the outside. And that's the whole idea with the sidecar pattern, I guess. But
Yes, true. So one of the things that I wanted to show you as well is the fact that I can now go into the Redis container that's running the state. So I connected to it now on this specific port. And then I can do a keys star, and it will show me all of the keys. And then we have this, I do have to switch over, get all, and then the key name, and then the key name is the entire key. So actually this is the key that I had yesterday evening when I was checking, and then now I have a slightly different name, so this is the name now. And then I can get the same state in that Redis container. So here you can see that it's actually being stored here. Now let's exit this. Because we just talked about secrets, for instance, right? And now, by default, the Dapper environment has a lot of components ready and running for you. So Redis as a state store is the default, and you could switch it out to be anything. Now let's look at what it would look like if you want to have a component for your secrets. Now I'm going to go into the folder where I actually have this environment available. Wait, I even had that in code, so I'm not really sure why I closed that, but I still have it here. I need to go to my web app location. And then what I actually did is I have this mysecret.json file, which contains a very big secret. And in this case, I use tabs, but I still prefer spaces.
It's for another...
Yeah, that's another discussion. So that could be a big secret of somebody, right?
Yeah.
And then what we can do is we can have, under this folder, my components here, I have this YAML file that tells my Dapr environment. In this case, I have a component with the name Betatalks secret store and of type secretstore.local.file. And in this case, I want to have my secrets files being pointed to mysecret.json. Now, while I run my application, and I need to stop this one first, this is such a downside of the PowerShell environment that it keeps exiting the process. So I probably don't have the command in here anymore. But now I'm going to take this one, and then I can explicitly specify, and I have that in my file here, that I would like to have my component part, component location, be the location where I just showed you. So the /my_components, which is this location, and then I actually have a local secret store.yaml in there that tells my Dapr environment for the secret store.
Okay, but you can put multiple YAML files there for definition of stuff you need.
Yes, it's even more interesting maybe to know that if we go C users and then my user, then there is this .dapper location where it actually has components. And here you can see that we have the state store available already, so that's the default.
Yeah.
And here you can see by default we have state.redis
This is
on
also
this local host.
the spot where if you like, I'm not going default for Redis in this environment, you can just do it here for all my projects.
Yes.
You can put it to something else.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
within the project you could specify a component location for project-specific components, and here you have your machine-specific components. So I have this local secret store here, and then if I run specifying that I actually want that component to be available, now I have my Dapr environment up and running, and my secrets are now being provided through the Dapr endpoint. And now I didn't have that in my Markdown file. So I'm going to guess a bit here. Oh wait, I have that in my Postman, I think. Yeah, I do. So again, localhost 3500 v1, and in this case it's secrets.
Yeah.
And then after secrets, it's the name of the secret store you want to use, because you can have multiple secret stores.
Okay, and that was in this case where did you define this?
It's in the YAML. Here we have the Betatalks secret store.
So you can indeed put multiple in. But that was my next question. Is like, what if you have multiple components that don't want to share everything?
You can. And then we have Betatalks secret, which actually maps to mysecret.json, this name. And as we send this now, I get a response. I use tabs, but I still prefer spaces. So
so this is all available. And the next step is going from your client app that you're building to use these. Is that then the idea to do this yourself, like just create HTTP calls with HTTP client or with gRPC, or does Dapr provide C#, Java, whatever, like all kinds of libraries around that?
So I haven't found them, but I must also say I haven't searched for them really extensively.
No, okay.
So I'm not entirely sure, but in the end it's relatively simple HTTP calls, so we could do that easily, right?
Yeah, no magic from there.
Yeah, so this is, in a nutshell, what Dapr provides. There's a ton more, so even if you only look at all of the components that are available, you can imagine that there's a lot of information like pub sub, secrets, observability, actors, extensibility, all of that is available.
Yep.
There's a lot of documentation, and it's not that hard getting up and running using Dapr. So
No, like I see, like these are most of the components we're used to, needing from some service. Like it pops up, like it's a bus.
yeah,
And especially in microservices, your problem is indeed communication, having indeed common secrets and all kinds of things between them, and some caching, state store.
yeah. So
And
that's-
they're all being solved here with default endpoints.
That's what Dapr aims to, actually abstract away for you.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So that's it for now.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this.
Well, thank you. Thank
I
you for
learned a lot.
watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.